want to go back to Tobias Wolff for a moment and think about look at another moment of misunderstanding in the short passage. We didn't discuss this last week, but it was in the reading from last week. This is the handout that's just the sort of front back page with no cover on it. I apologize. I'm trying to save a little bit on paper here. I wonder if you'll recall from last week, Tobias Wolff, his memoir in Pharaoh's Army, written in the early 90s, about his experiences as an American soldier in Vietnam. This selection was taken from his chapter called Civilian. He's back in the United States. We met him last week in a bar telling terrible stories. He briefly considered enrolling at UC Berkeley. And in this passage I'd like to look at today, he shows up on the Berkeley campus and encounters a protest. So I'd like to look at just at page 195. And it's just the front on the front back handout for today without a title on it. I'm sorry. Where it says, "One day I took a bus over to Berkeley," and if you just read from there down to the break on 197, it's a really brief description of his encounter there. So let's take a couple of minutes to read that, and what jumps out at you from this passage? These paragraphs.
He had three demands, or the speaker had three demands that were probably not reasonable.
Right.
The withdrawal of the troops from Vietnam, recognition of Cuba, and then probably the most impossible one, the forgiveness of student loans.
Yeah. All right. So 1968, right? This is the speaker here has these three demands. Unreasonable why?
Well, at the time we were committed to the war.
Right. Okay. 1968. It's going to go on for several years. We know now, but they didn't know that. Yeah.
It was the height of the Cold War.
Height of the Cold War. Right.
Yeah. Well, to piggyback what he said, we saw this war as if Vietnam was taken over by the communists, then all of Asia would fall. Okay. Southeast Asia.
So Cuba ties in here via the Cold War, yeah,
Or the domino theory.
Domino theory, right? Ike's in the back there is staring at us. So part of this notion of either containment, right? We'll contain communism, or when one country falls, so rule the rest of the world. Cool. What about the student loan? Forgiveness, yeah. What is that? How does that fit?
They're on campus.
On campus? And?
Well, student loan is something they're providing to students.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. So this is where it could seem like these are three really random, different kinds of.
But they were not in the world of student deferment. And in the world that only people with access to money had access to deferments. If they'd gone federal government loans, kept the student deferments, then what about the government? So I think, well, it's tied out, especially reality's basic class in that period.
Good. All right. Okay. So the student loan, or an anxiety about being able to remain in college, is tied to one's exposure to the draft and potential service in the war, right? At some point.
That when he says, when the speaker says, "Until the demands are met, I consider myself in a state of unconditional war with the United States." That's when Tobias Wolff laughs, and to me that laugh is like, you have no idea what war is if you think that's a war. That's the way I take it.
If you think you are in
at war.
Yes, you have no idea. So he laughs at the right. What happens next? What's the reaction to this laugh? What kind of laugh is this, by the way? He didn't say, but we can guess.
Demise?
Probably. Huh?
I agree. They're right. Sarcastic.
Yeah. All right. You find it contemptuous, maybe? I don't know. Right? In that vein, it elicits a response. And what do they argue about? This other student, presumably, right, who's at the rally. We don't know what his commitment is to any of the ideas there, but he's there at the rally. What's the argument? What's it about?
It seems like the bearded guy takes offense to the laugh, but then the author doesn't say what they necessarily are talking about.
Right. Okay. So we don't quite know.
I don't think he remembers. He just blocks out because he's so upset.
Oh, so later he realizes that he's talking and he's kind of disembodied, right, towards the end of the top of 197. Then I saw he had gone quiet. He stood there looking at me. I heard the crazy things I was saying, and realized, even as I continued to yell at him, that he would, right, that he's much younger. So Wolff's kind of stepped out of himself, and he's speaking, he's shouting, but he's listening to himself while he's shouting. You had a comment?
Oddly similar to what you said, but obviously he's walking around with a lot of anger because he didn't hear what the guy said. He really didn't hear what the guy said, and it just set him off. He just saw the guy's mouth moving. That's all he had to see, is that the guy's saying something nasty about me.
So he's looking for.
And I'm not going to take that.
Right.
And so there's some seething stuff going on
Yeah.
deep down.
It's remarkably personal, isn't it? Yeah. He said something. He looked at me the way I didn't like it. Whatever he says, Wolff takes extreme offense to. We don't know. Is it political? What this guy said to him?
We don't know, but he says he brushed me off as if I didn't exist, and that to me is got him fighting.
Yeah. All right. So as though I didn't exist. Personal feels. Yeah. Two people posturing, maybe like some fighting. Right. His observation at the end of this, I think, is worth lingering on. This is still on 197 when he realizes that he's shouting and he's like kind of disembodied again. He starts looking at the student, and he says here, he was much younger than I'd thought. A boy with ruddy cheeks, his beard was too sparse to hide. When I managed to stop myself, I saw that the people around us were watching me as if I were pitiful. I turned away and walked toward Sattergate, my face burning. What does he realize? What does Wolff learn here in this?
I feel like that his anger and his rage are so palpable and visceral on the surface there. It just came out in this seclusive way.
Yeah.
Against a young kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really do.
Right. We're back to how he doesn't know what the war is like.
Right.
This is presumably an undergraduate college student, right? Who's there, and we don't know that he's, what his ideological commitments are. If he's there out of curiosity, or if he's, the first one on the barricade, right? We don't understand that either. We're not given that information, right? All we know is that it's a young kid, and then Wolff realizes.
And at the same time, then he sees that people are looking at him as if he were pitiful.
Yeah.
But to me, as the reader, he's not pitiful. I mean, he's enraged, and I know why. And so it's the sort of thing about they think he's crazy, and I'm like, well, is he crazy, or is the whole situation crazy in which he's being planted? It's like, it kind of turns. I can see both in that paragraph.